They're good. Okay. Sorry, we're getting feedback, so we have to hold the mic. So it's so great to be here, and thank Kamala and the whole team at the Chemung Chamber for putting this together, and we'll get into a lot more accolades as we move on through the program. So I'm the chair of the chamber, and it's my pleasure to welcome everyone to this formal recognition of our 2021 Leadership Chemung program participants. These graduates are the 35th class of Leadership Chemung, and we are very happy to be celebrating with them today and here in person. Additionally, this morning, we're also recognizing last year's class, the 34th class of Leadership Chemung, who did not have the opportunity to have a formal commencement due to the restrictions on the event in 2021. So I'd like to give both classes a round of applause, please. And I'd also like to take a moment to really thank Chemung Canal for their once again sponsoring this event, this morning's leadership commencement, as they have for many, many years. So again, a round of applause for Chemung Canal. Speaking of gratitude, we want to thank the one and only Dusty Hewitt, who facilitates the Leadership Chemung program. Well done, Dusty. Thank you very much. Round of applause. In 2020, the Chamber had the honor of concluding the 34th class of Leadership Chemung. 24 class members from businesses representing a broad swath of local industries were welcomed into the alumni ranks. The program, which began in September of 2019, faced many disruptions, as we all know, caused by the COVID-19 crisis. Classes taught in person were delayed in the early days of the pandemic. The program was then transitioned to a fully virtual platform for the first time in its history. Participants who fully committed to what they already knew would be a demanding leadership curriculum were further challenged by working remotely, homeschooling their children, and helping to guide their respective employers in mitigating the impact of the crisis and creating contingency protocols. Here with us today are the members of the 34th class of Leadership Chemung. We begin the program with an initiative originally instigated by the leadership participants, which has been to call on one of their own to provide us with a few anecdotes and insights from their perspective. This year, we'll hear from both the 2020 and the 2021 classes. Last year, the class chose Amir Sheikh, who is the dietary director for Woodbrook Assisted Living Residents, and we had a few minutes to talk racing prior to him coming up. So we got a great affinity for Amir. Amir, would you please come on up? Yeah. Absolutely.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to start by saying thank you to Linda and Chamber of Commerce for hosting Leadership Chemung 2021. I also want to thank you all for giving me the honor to speak with you today. I'm truly grateful, as this has been a life-changing experience for me. I never thought I would be in this type of position or where I am with my professional career. I started out my career growing up in India, thinking I'm going to be a doctor just like everybody else in my family. To my surprise, I was not cut out to diagnose people, but here I am creating recipes to feed the people that I never intended to feed. At 18, I was failing medical school with a GPA of 1.9 average. This was an embarrassment for a traditional Indian family of doctors. I hope none of you guys can relate to that. On my way to tell my parents that I'm not going to make it through school, I stopped to visit my grandmother. I still remember that day, November 1995. She said, "Son, this is just a roadblock at this time. You are destined to do much bigger things in life." Now, mind you, I just found out I'm failing medical school. I did not know what I was going to do with my life. And here's this old lady telling me that I'm going to travel the world and speak to millions of people. Well, sometimes fate delivers on words spoken at a surreal moment. I did end up traveling the world. I have spoken to many people. I have had many successes and some epic failure, but maybe we'll leave that for some other day. But that's not the most important thing for me. The most important thing for me is, and always will be what she told me that day. Do not fear failure, but be terrified of regrets. Giving up is a birth of regret. We all will receive 100 doors shut on our faces. We will all have 100 moments filled with somebody telling us no, or telling us, thank you for your application, but we regret to inform you we chose a different candidate for the job. What I urge you humbly today is not to take no for an answer. At times, our purpose drops on our lap as if heaven threw it by accident. Miss USA 2016. Do not be afraid of failure, but fail big. Fail big, but learn from your failure. After all, you only live once. Do what you're passionate about. Take chances, personally and professionally. Do not be afraid to fail, but be afraid of possibility to reaching your goals. During the leadership course, we had one presenter that stood out to me the most, Mr. Travis Barnes. He presented us with an IQ test with 9 dots, and we had to draw 5 lines with the pen within this 9 dots without lifting up the pen. The only way to do so was to go outside the box. So do not be afraid to go outside the box. Do not be afraid to think outside the box. It was an aha moment for me. The idea of one could dream even bigger than any failure. So dream, but remember to have goals. Dream without goals are just dreams. Have daily, monthly, yearly, lifelong goals. In addition, understand to achieve these goals, you must apply discipline and consistency. You have to work hard every day. You have to plan every day. You have heard that saying, we don't plan to fail, we fail to plan. I would like to touch on one more thing, cultural diversity. Cultural diversity is a real opportunity to show the social wealth we have in Chemung County to other regions of the world. Cultural diversity is also a way of sharing our values, such as freedom of expression, free and equal access to information, and independence of cultural life in an all-inclusive society. Let us not be blind by our differences, but let us also direct our attention to common interests and goals, and use those means to resolve those differences. And if we cannot end our differences now, at least we can help make the world safe for diversity, JFK. Helping to make this county more inclusive is exactly what Chemung County leaders are trying to do by giving the culture and diversity more prominent place in our society. This is why I'm deeply committed to leadership of Chemung, and I'm so very grateful for the opportunity that has been granted to me by the leadership class of 2020 and Chamber of Commerce. In conclusion, I have a request for you. Include culture and diversity in your fight for success in our community. Continue your journey in completing your goals and accomplishing your dreams. Remember, anything you want is possible through hard work. When you achieve your goal, give back to the community. Only then will our society will prosper. Thank you, and I hope to continue to collaborate with you all to enrich our community.
Fantastic. It was fantastic, Amir. Thank you very much. Moving on to the 2021 class, the 2021 class chose Joseph Panzarella, who is the project manager in international sales for Hilliard Corporation, as their class speaker. Joe will be joining us virtually this morning with his remarks. Dusty?
Thank you very much. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Dusty, for letting me do this as a virtual speech, and I do apologize for not being able to be there in person. For those that are in the class, I feel very honored that I was selected to be this year's class speaker. And for those of you that are not sure who I am from the previous class, as they just stated, I do work for the Hilliard Corporation as a project manager in international sales. For anyone that's not familiar with the Hilliard Corporation, we are a leader in filtration and motion control technology that's local and family owned since 1905. When I first heard about Leadership Chemung a few years back from a fellow coworker, I knew that this would definitely be a program that I would benefit from and love to be a part of. And not just because the class was about leadership, but because it also gave back to our community, which is a vital part in moving our area forward for future generations. And if 2021 has taught us anything, it's that we all could depend on each other in some way, shape, or form. And I highly encourage anyone that has the time or ability to give back to the community that you live in to give back. It's always been something that I believed in, and this philosophy has only been strengthened by this course and also by working at Hilliard, as they've been giving back to the community for a very long time. Over the next few minutes, I'll talk about this year's course, my experience with other participants in the class, and what leadership means to me. So the Leadership Chemung course, I believe it's a great program to be offered and to be available to us for not only young professionals, but any professional in our area. From the very start, I was able to learn about aspects of leadership I never knew, and that continued to build and learn throughout the entire course. It was a pleasure listening to every guest speaker, from small business owners to large corporations on their philosophies of leadership and how they really molded the area that we live in the southern tier of New York. However, for me personally, I don't believe anything could have topped season 2, where we learned about 3 different styles of leadership. And those 3 different styles, for anyone who hasn't taken the class yet, are autocratic, democratic, and laissez-faire. For anyone who is not sure of those basic breakdowns, autocratic basically leads with a lot of influence and direct power and has a hard time giving that power up and that decision-making up for the group, where the democratic will lead like a democracy by allowing a collective knowledge of the entire group to weigh in, but the final call is still left up to that type of leader. And then the laissez-faire, which leads by taking a hands-off approach, where others in the group will really make the decisions, and then they'll just add in guidance or knowledge when required. And I believe why this enticed me so much is because I never would have guessed that I was an autocratic leader. That would have been the last leadership style I would have thought I fell into. And then another shock came when we decided to have our group discussions and found out that there was only 2 out of 19 of us that fell under this leadership style, while the rest fell under the democratic. However, as we further discussed this topic to make sure we all understood it, it started to make more sense that both I fell under the autocratic leadership style and the other participant in the class, as we worked in very similar positions. Our roles directly affect an end user, and we're driven by specific deadlines and specifications. So it's very important to us to keep our group on task and moving forward without straying too much from the scope of the project. However, we also learn that one leadership style is no better than another, when each one has their own strengths and weaknesses. For example, a laissez-faire leader may not acquire the same level of success with an inexperienced group that an autocratic leader would, and then vice versa. The autocratic leader would not have the same level of success with an experienced group of individuals that the laissez-faire leader would. Overall, I believe each session slowly built onto this topic, and that we've all become better leaders from the course as we've learned more about our own strengths and weaknesses. Unfortunately, I would be lying if I got to say that I knew every classmate well over the past year, as it's been challenging for everyone. And not having the direct in-person interactions added another level of complexity. However, I feel that we're all blessed by the virtual technology we have available to us at this time, and from the interactions that I've had with each and every one of you. It was great to have such a diverse group of people. And in regards to that diversity, it would be the professional background that brought different points of views and kept the class very dynamic when weighing in on questions that Dusty asked. So this will bring me to my last topic, which is leadership, which is the big question of the course. What is leadership? Well, according to Webster's dictionary, leadership is the capacity to lead or the act of holding a position of leading. Now, that I do not believe does the word justice, and it doesn't really explain leadership. So for myself and many others, when we hear the word leadership or leader, we link it to a position or a title, such as a monarchy, a government position, military, CEO, VP, and on and on. However, I don't believe we should. And my reasoning behind this is that I believe everyone is a leader in their own right. And it only takes a certain action or an environmental setting or event to have this come to surface. I also believe that there's leaders and then there's great leaders. And each person, I believe, will have a different description or a different look at what is a leader and a great leader. But in my own mindset, the main difference between these would be based on life actions and lessons that that leader would learn throughout their path or career in life. For me, a perfect example of a great leader and a perfect example of leadership would be my supervisor at Hilliard. He's a person that I look to for guidance and a person that I learned leadership from every day since I started working at Hilliard 7 years ago. See, I came to Hilliard from a completely different background, very little experience in power generation or manufacturing. And not once did he ever make me feel like I was inexperienced, unintelligent, or not in the right field. And for reference, the background I came from was aviation, which is worlds apart from manufacturing. However, he knew my skill set and he would provide guidance and knowledge when required. And this took then what I could only assume was a calculated risk to let me lead in specific areas. I believe this is a large part of leadership, taking calculated risks to let people you are working with or that are working for you grow with you. And as an end result, you have a much better team and it's a much better result for all. Knowing that I had his knowledge behind me, this not only strengthened my own skills, but it defined my current role and boosted my expertise in other areas, expanding my reach of skills by knowing that his confidence was there and his guidance and knowledge would always be a skill set I could lean on. It also had another hidden effect, something I did not believe would be a skill I would acquire or develop so young in my career. This skill was leadership, drive, and passion for my work, which led me to love the company I work for and the role I perform daily. I'm by no means an expert in leadership. However, to me, a great leader will not only lead, but will also let others lead so that the task at hand can be quickly, efficiently, and successfully completed. Which then brings me back to my topic earlier about 3 different leadership styles. A great leader will not only have a leadership style, but I believe they'll be able to change leadership styles based on the specific group or the task at hand. And the key characteristic to a great leader in my mind is change, which I believe is something we should all embrace moving forward, as it will only better ourselves and others around us. See, change will make us progressively challenge and push ourselves to be a better version of our old self, better at work, better in the community, and better in all aspects of life. So in closing, I'll leave on this note. Don't be afraid of change. Face it head on, for only then you can truly see how good your leadership skills are. Thank you very much to everyone. I hope you have a great summer, and I wish I could have been there in person. Dusty, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you very much. Before can you go back? Go back to the slide? Oh, he cut it off. Did anybody notice the kid over here? Yeah. Did anybody notice the older man over here pulling his hair out? What hair he didn't have? This was Jan. and that was his grandfather when Jan said, "Don't worry, Dad, big grandpa, I'll take the company someday." I wish Joe would have left that up there. That's awesome. I'm sorry, Jan. Could you see that picture from over there? Okay, good. I'm glad Joe was recognizing you and your family. He did thank his supervisor, so you might have to throw him a raise too. So, anyway, sorry. Back to the program. Anybody knows me, you know I got to have something smart to say about something. So, to continue, and thank you, and Dusty, thank you for coordinating that. Just as the leadership program has had many great graduates, the commencement program has also enjoyed many great guest speakers. This morning we continue that tradition. Judy Rowe was selected by the class to speak today after her participation as a panelist in the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in the Workplace session this past fall. This topic was a new addition to the leadership curriculum, and one we feel is important for the future of our leaders to embrace. Amir, you were spot on. Judy is passionate about using strengths-based approach to help individuals, teams, and organizations navigate through planning and transitions to realize their full potential. She has worked with many private and nonprofit organizations and establishments excuse me, and her consulting company, Judy Rowe Consulting LLC, provides many services, including coaching, training, facilitation, team organizational effectiveness, transitions, and career development. A great friend of our community, a fellow board member on the community board as well. Judy and I both sit in a chamber in our leadership from Leadership Chemung. Please welcome Judy Rowe.
Hello, everyone. I just can't tell you how humbled and honored I am to be selected by this class. I didn't even think it would be possible. I had such a good time with the group. We talked about some very, very tough topics. I collected data beforehand, shared it back with them, and we had some very rich conversations. I think last time we saw each other, I was in a box like that, right? Can we just acknowledge how wonderful it is to see faces and people we haven't seen before in a very, very long time? I want to give a round of applause for just being together without sweatpants. So I'll be honest with you. I had a really written speech. I thought that I want to first acknowledge Amir's comments. I think he said beautifully all the things I was wanting to say, just to challenge people to do things differently and to lead differently, because out of COVID, these are different times. I'm going to say it again. Out of COVID, these are different times, because everything that we knew before COVID is now a little bit different. People are going to ask for and require a lot more empathy in their leadership. They're going to be requiring a lot more flexibility. Have you heard that enough? Let's be flexible. It's like, I don't want to be flexible, you know? And I think that, Joe said it beautifully about just describing what leadership is, different styles, being able to flex, being able to accommodate what's happening, because we've all had to do that. You've all had to lead in different ways. We've all had to do things differently. So let me just tell you a story. I have to be reminded of my husband, Joe. Probably about roughly 3 years ago, I was leaving Corning Incorporated, starting my own practice full time. And I was nervous about it. I was afraid I'd have to go downtown through, Elmira and Corning and put flyers on everyone's windshields to hire me. That's just how nervous I was. I knew I had things to contribute, but I didn't know exactly how I was going to do that. So my husband said, look, when things started picking up and I was traveling to Portland, I was traveling to Ithaca and all these different places, he says, Judy, I have one word for you. Again, this is 3 years ago. He said, Zoom. I'm like, what? He said, Zoom. You need to start using Zoom. And I said, you're crazy. Why would I not meet with people I can't do my job. I can't coach people. I can't do training on Zoom. And he goes, okay. Lo and behold, leading also means being able to be flexible and change. And guess who's on Zoom? Probably more than I like now, a lot more, and it's so much more convenient. So I want to just say to all of you that don't be afraid to try to do things differently. And what I want to just stop and pause before I go back to my regularly scheduled program is to have you all pause and because we're together, not too close, but I want you to think about what's one thing that you've learned during this pandemic as it relates to either leading or working with groups of people that you want to keep, even as things start opening up and lifting up and things start going back to the way they sort of were before. Just think about that for a minute. What do you want to keep? Because I know for me, what I want to keep is the opportunity to ask people how they are first before I launch into the work. So my coaching question used to be, it still will be, how are you doing today? Before we launch into the work, how are you doing? Because people are still struggling with the whole COVID experience. There are people that are really trying to ascertain and figure out how they're going to go back to work and how that's going to feel. You've got people with anxiety, mental health challenges are still there. And a good leader always looks at the person as a whole, not just getting the work done. So think about that. And if you would just kind of quickly tell if you want to talk about it at your table, what have you learned that you want to keep? because I want you to get something that you're going to keep out of what I'm going to say today too as well. Quickly, talk to each other. You're here together. All right, take another 30 seconds to finish up, please. Thank you for coming back so nicely. I didn't have to say anything more than that. So I want you to think about that thing that you shared, and I want you to keep that in your minds. Please don't lose sight of that, because even as things start opening back up, I think that my fear, and to Amir's challenge to everyone, is to maintain a focus on, inclusion and getting the best and the most that you can from everyone and letting everyone have an opportunity to participate. So I'm a lover of quotes. So I have a number of them I've selected, especially for you today. And the first one is from Vince Lombardi. Who knew I would be quoting a famous football coach? But I love his definition of leadership, and I'll begin with that. He said, to me, a leader is a visionary who energizes others. This definition of leadership has two key dimensions. One is creating a vision of the future, and the second is inspiring others to make that vision a reality. How about that? Make that vision a reality. Because having that vision is very important for you to have as individuals. And I love that Joe talked about the different leadership styles and strengths that we all have in those different leadership styles, because beginning with yourself is really the most important challenge. I think for me, my favorite thing that I like to say is leadership starts from the inside out. If you know yourself and you're able to understand what your strengths are and what your capabilities are and what your growth opportunities are, then you can go out confidently and start moving in that direction. And I said confidently, I didn't say it would be without fear, because we've all experienced that this year as well. And so when I think about having that fear, I think about maybe feeling confident 1 minute, and then when COVID hit, the pandemic started, protests started, because we're talking about social reckoning, racial reckoning in this country. And it did not hit here in Elmira. I went to the Black Lives Matter March. I was so inspired by the number and the diversity of people I saw marching to gain access to equality for everyone in this country and everyone in our community. And so it filled my heart so much that I had to keep thinking about that image as I was thinking about leadership today and what I was going to share with all of you. And so in this moment that we have, in this movement that we have in this country to look at things differently, I'd like for you to think about this quote by Eleanor Roosevelt. She said, "You gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you really have to stop and look fear in the face." We've all had to do that. "And you must do the thing you think you cannot do." I love that quote, because I've had to do some things I haven't had to do with Zoom. I've had to learn how to engage people. I've had to learn how to deal with people that are having some very significant challenges, mental health challenges, and challenges with the work and the workload and work-life balance, being that many people were teacher, spouse or partner, and they were also, a work-at-home employee. And I also like Frederick Douglass' quote is, "Without struggle, there is no progress." Without struggle, there is no progress. I will also let you know that I believe that all of you have the opportunity to make a difference in everyone's lives that you touch. I think being able to get in and learn what people are suffering with, challenged with, and being able to help lift them and support them is very important to becoming a leader and to keep growing as a leader. And as Gandhi also famously frequently quoted, be the change you wish to see in the world. So I want you to consider that we have a long way to go. As a community, we've done a lot. We've been challenged with a lot, and we're coming out of the other side of this in good shape. You're all looking really good today, I'm going to tell you. And so, but I do know we have a lot of work ahead of us as well. I think it's important that we all continue to focus on what kinds of things can I do to improve myself, my community, my family, my workplace. And so I want you to think about this as well. There's a famous quote by Harriet Tubman that said, every dream begins with a dreamer. Always remember you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars and change the world. And so I always want you to think about that. You know, how can you change the world? How can you make this a more inclusive, just environment, both at work, in your schools, in your environments, in your workplaces? Also, how can you help empower others to do better and stand up and do more than what they've done before? And so I always want you to think about, you know, as I've grown in my leadership roles, in various leadership roles I've had in my businesses, as I've, you know, been a community leader in some aspects and just been a volunteer in some instances. I want you to think about Mother Teresa's quote as well. She said, I cannot alone change the world, but I can cast a stone in the water to create many ripples. So in closing, I want to say to all of you, because I think a lot has been said already by the two great speakers before me, I'd like for you to think about all the things that you've taken away from this program, to not forget to continue to continuously learn. I think if I stop learning, I stop growing. And if I stop growing, I cease to be able to be that person that's going to make a difference. So I want you to all commit to being lifelong learners. I also want you to broadly and openly and inclusively share all that you know with everyone that you touch. I also want you to think about and dream and keep dreaming those big dreams that you have. Don't let any of them be too small. If you're not scared a little bit, you're not big enough. I also want you to continue to cast those stones out into the world, to create those positive ripples, to make positive change. Again, in your homes, your workplaces, and in the community at large. And this has been no small feat, this COVID era, and this era of pandemic protests and politics, I like to call it. So I want you to be feeling the best you can feel right now, and to be feeling so proud of all that you accomplished on Zoom and other ways that you've had to deal with going through all the work that you've had ahead of you, and to always recognize others for the different ways that they've had to lead in this pandemic and the post-pandemic era that we're entering at this time. Don't forget to say thank you, not only to yourselves, but to others around you. And I also want you to think about just how good it feels to be going toward the other side of the pandemic, and to recognize all the things that you've done. And don't forget what we talked about, DI. I'm not going to disclose everything, but I do want you to appreciate the fact that diversity is something that we all need to embrace. We all need to find ways to move things forward, and we all need to find ways to make a difference in everything that we do. The other thing I want to mention before I close is that I want you all to consider that this next generation that's coming up, I see a lot of people that are either younger than me or older than me. This next generation has zero tolerance for the lack of inclusivity, for doing out and going and making things better. As a matter of fact, I was talking with Pamela, I was talking with Michael before I came up here, and they both were talking about the things that their children are doing, the protests they're attending, the things that matter to them. And so it's not going to be just about leading to get the work done. It's about leading to get the work done, but also figuring out how you can take those same people and motivate them to make a difference. They want to make a difference in this community. And when I talk to high school students, which I'm working with also, they're not wanting to just be a leader. They want to be an advocate for change. And that's significant. And and they're strong about it. They're not taking no for an answer. And if I don't give them the answer, it'll help them get there. They're going to find it other ways. And these are the people you want to hire into your companies. They are, because these are the people that are going to be dedicated to making a difference for not only our communities, our workplaces, but the world. So again, I want to say congratulations to all of you. And thank you so much for this honor of being in front of you today. And I hope, and I'm offering you the challenge to go out and help people feel included, empower yourselves, and do it in ways that are going to make a difference for the world, for everyone to feel that they all have an opportunity to do everything they can in this country and in this community. So thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I wish you all the very best in every single endeavor that you do. Take care.
That was fantastic, Judy. Thank you very much. Now I invite the facilitator, Dusty Hewitt, to the podium to share some comments and from his unique perspective as leading Leadership Chemung, and then we'll distribute the certificates to each member of the 2021 class of Leadership Chemung. So Dusty.
Thank you, Michael. Yes, I'm Dusty. I'm the person who, through some cruel twist of fate, was the individual chosen to follow up Judy Rowe. So if you're all really excited about that. Judy, thank you again. Could we please give Judy another thank you? A lot has been said by our speakers in our keynote about leadership this morning, and you've learned about the ways that this year's class engaged with community and built relationships that will benefit them as well as the organizations with which they partnered. And we're going to learn a little bit more about those group projects in just a few minutes. But I want to specifically congratulate both classes represented in the room today because you did something that no other class has done in the history of this program. And this program has been going on for quite some time. I'm referring, of course, to managing this experience through a global pandemic. Now, COVID-19 definitely made Leadership Chemung more challenging than it otherwise would have been, for sure. Last year's class abruptly stopped meeting in person and had to transition to an online format. And that, by the way, was before any of us were graduates of Zoom University. So that was a little bit new at that time, you'll probably recall. And this year's class, as has been mentioned, did its experience entirely online. The first time this group has been in person together was today at their commencement. Honestly, I've only ever seen your heads, so it's really nice to see the rest of you. We have all learned a lot of things from the pandemic, like how to produce a hybrid virtual commencement ceremony, like how to put the mask over the nose, not under the nose, but over the nose. I like baking bread. Some of you bake bread. I bake some bread. But throughout this experience, a thing, and not just because of my involvement with this program, but a thing that I have thought a lot about is leadership. And when I think back to various points along the timeline from March 2020 through today, I think about people I know who made me feel better along the way because of their leadership. I think about people like Kamala and everybody at the chamber. I think about our school district superintendents who were communicating nonstop with us parents about what was going on, even as things were changing by the hour. These folks were called because of their role, because of their passion and their skill to lead through a particularly difficult period of time, and lead they did. And I've also been thinking about you all, the participants, because you enrolled in this and you powered through it during a year like no other. It's a commonly held belief, and it makes sense, that people enroll in this program to gain and build and develop their leadership skills. And I do think we do that. I believe that the program, the experience strengthened us all in that area. I think our speakers this morning can testify to that. But here's what I want all of you who are not participants to know, employers, board members, others. Folks who came through this program over the last 2 years are not going to be leaders. They are already leaders. After the year we had, we discussed ways they were looking and working to motivate and support their teams, how to resolve workplace conflicts that they were experiencing, how to mobilize their groups to accomplish their project objectives and a lot more. We did it all through the screen, at least this year we did. And we did it from home offices and dining room tables with noise in the background and children who needed your help. We did it in isolation. Some of us did it in quarantine. And we did it against all odds and expectations together. I'd like to thank the Chamber for entrusting me with the leadership of this program. I want to thank all the employers who understand the value of Leadership Chemung and what it brings to our community. And I want to say this next part just to the participants of these two classes. It's been my distinct pleasure to go through this bizarre experience with you. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for turning your cameras on. Thank you for asking questions and really making this work, even as we were really building the airplane while we were flying it. The level of trust and collaboration among these people, these participants during this specific time was something so incredible that really the only regret I have from the last year and a half was that everybody in this room didn't get the chance to see it firsthand. I consider myself extremely fortunate to have been there and had a front row seat. These leaders in this room, they are Chemung County. And this morning, I'm here to tell you that if you entrust them with the important work of our area, the future here is very, very bright indeed. So thank you.
I think we're going to as we approach the end of the commencement, but we have congratulate everybody and hand out the awards now, I believe, right? So you call the name and I'll hand the goods. Are you helping too?
Yeah, I'll help.
So the first thing we're going to do is read off the names from the 2021 class. And if you're able, we're going to ask you to stand, remain standing until all names have been read, and then we're going to offer you a round of applause. After that is completed, we're going to ask you to come up by project group, and you will receive from Kamala and Michael your diploma, as well as some other treats here, okay? So for the moment, if you hear when you hear your name, please rise and remain standing if you are able. Nicole Brown, the Art of Chemung Schuyler. Peyton Hewitt, Carrie and Carol. Ashley Coleman, the Hewitt Corporation. Heather Gildorno, Arnett Health. Shelley Durr, Arnett Health. Chris Luno, Cameron Manufacturing and Design. Jennifer Fernandez, GSD BOCES. Chris, Chemung Canal Trust Company. Angela P, Arnett Health. Lauren Little, Arnett Health Foundation. Amanda Coleman, Food Bank of the Southern Tier. Joe Angelella, excuse me, the Hilliard Corporation, he's probably still sitting. Heather Paul, Arnett Health. Bethany DeMont, Perry and Carroll. Jenna Rapisardi, now Cornell University. Shaw, Orange Incorporated. Jessica Smith, the Art of Chemung Schuyler. Lonnie Stroop, Arnett Health. And joining us remotely, Janet Wayne from Arnett Realty Group. And you may now be seated. At this point, I'll provide a little bit of information about each of the projects. For those of you who are not aware, our groups engage with the community even during this year, so this was a unique challenge, but they engage with the community by performing special group projects. And so what I'm going to do is explain who they worked with, what they did, and who was in the group. So first, the group working with, and this is very abridged, so I'm going to try to do them justice, but I know that they're going to be very brief descriptions. So the first group worked with Care First, working to support their donor acknowledgement efforts, which was a big deal during this time, as well as creating a series of intake packets that helped the staff and administration of Care First. I'd like to call up to the podium at this point Nicole Brown, Heather Shaw, Lonnie Stroop, and Janet Wayne. Joining us remotely, so she's not able to be here.
Yeah.
Congratulations and thank you. Our next group executed a lengthy and significant cleanup at the Sealy Creek area of the Chemung River, worked together with the Friends of the Chemung River organization, and is also planning on the installation of a bench at the location to continue to beautify and support our community and our riverfront. The bench, as I've been told, is going to be donated by the Hilliard Corporation, so we appreciate that. The following folks are in that group: Ashley Coleman, please come on up. Shelley Durr, Chris Druno, Andrew Klee, and Amanda Paul. Congratulations. The next group of participants partnered with the Glove House to create a series of critical trainings for therapeutic foster parents that are still going on now. Please join us at the front: Bethany DeMott, Katie Kadick, Heather Paul, Jenna Rapasari, and Heather Del Giorno.
Okay, sorry. Wrong Heather.
We had a lot of Heathers. Congratulations and thank you all. Our final group did a deep dive with the Wings of Eagles Discovery Center and discovered that they needed lots of help with creating a series of promotional materials that are going to be developed and have been developed to support increased attendance and engagement with the community. The following folks, please join us up here. Of course, Joe is remote, so he will not be joining us, but Lauren Little, Jessica Smith, Judy Frisk, and Jennifer Fernandez.
You're first. Oh, thanks. Judy.
Yep.
Congratulations to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, and congratulations once again. As we approach the end of the commencement and the end of this year's important community program, I'd like to commend the Leadership Chemung Committee. Thank you, Dusty and team. These volunteers make this program successful, and we're grateful to them. Please stand and be recognized for all the committee members. Thank you. On behalf of all the program alumni, we welcome these graduates today and look forward to the fantastic work they are sure to continue doing in our region for many years to come. As Amir and Joe pointed out, and Judy, we want to thank all of you for your commitment to our community. Also, just a reminder, if all the graduates wouldn't mind staying for a few group photos, that would be great. And finally, on behalf of the Chemung County Chamber of Commerce and the 2020 and 2021 graduates of Leadership Chemung, thank you all for being here this morning and helping us celebrate. Have a great day. Thank you.